government. And if we can solve one problem, we might be able to solve another. So I think it's worth me taking the time to consider my options.
Gardaí are experiencing horrific injuries every day, says the GRA. It comes as Freedom of Information figures show there was a 17% increase in attacks on members of the forces last year compared to 2021. It's 7:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Best present ever. Give them a Ryanair gift card and they'll love you forever.
Mostly dry tomorrow with sunny spells, highest temperatures of 3 to 8 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Start your day in flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
It is Thursday's Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock. We've got a busy show ahead. Joey Carberry is not in the Ireland squad for the Six Nations. We'll be talking about that with Rory O'Connor after 8 o'clock. John Giles is with us to look back on all the week's football and look ahead to tonight's football as well. A big game at the Etihad. Manchester City against Tottenham. No Kevin De Bruyne or Phil Foden in the Manchester City side. And we're going to look at Leeds as well on the football show. And we're also going to talk about abuse in Canadian gymnastics. We've touched on abuse in American gymnastics, and I'm sure lots of people have seen that Athlete A documentary that is well worth a watch if you haven't seen it. And now similar cases emerging in Canada. So we're going to talk about that after 8 o'clock as well. Arthur O'Dea is with us. Good evening, Arthur.
Evening, Nathan.
Richie McCormack should be there as well. Good evening, Richie.
Lads, how are you?
All good. Curtis Fleming is going to be with us as well on the football show, former Ireland international. He's currently the assistant manager at Bristol City. He's going to talk to us about this story of John Yems, which has really taken off in the last couple of days. It was earlier in the month that he was banned from football for 18 months after being found guilty of racist abuse towards his players. He was immediately suspended by his club. But the FA report was properly released earlier this week, and it found that he used offensive, racist and Islamophobic language. He joked that a Muslim player was a terrorist, called black players Zulu warriors, referred to an Asian player as a suicide bomber. Just a long litany of really atrocious behaviour. Remarkably, the FA disciplinary committee accepted that Mr. Yems is not a conscious racist, and this is in their report. Mr. Yems' banter undoubtedly came across to the victims and others as offensive, racist and Islamophobic. So we're going to talk to Curtis Fleming about the 18 months and about the decision by the investigating committee to describe him as not a conscious racist, and also what dressing rooms are like and how common is this sort of language in dressing rooms. John Yems, the former Crawley manager, was on TalkSport this morning. So you would expect, after, as I say, there's a long litany, way past what I've just described there, of abuse that he inflicted on young players in his dressing room. You would have thought maybe there was a bit of contrition when he appeared on TalkSport with Jim White this morning. Turned out anything but.
Well, let's bring it right up to date, John. The Commission accepted that you are not a conscious racist. John, what would you say to people this morning who'd push back on that? Who would say, John Yems, we know what you are. You're racist.
Listen, to be quite honest with you, I don't know where this conscious racist is coming from, because it was, to me, it was cut and dry, and I don't really know the meaning of that. I've got to be quite honest with you. I'm not trying to be a thicko here. I just don't know what it's all about. I'm dragged through the worst experiences of my life in my total time in football. I've worked with black players, I've worked with white players, I've worked with every race, I've worked in most countries. And some of the things that I've been accused of saying, to me, okay, some of them they've said that I used old-fashioned language. I totally agree with it. If that's the case, then that's the case. But it wasn't for me to be racist. Saying that to me when I was growing up, that's a terrible thing to say to somebody. And it's so easy to throw them accusations, because you throw enough mud and guess what, it will stick. And I find that very offensive to people to say I'm racist.
But John, do you not accept that you've done something wrong, particularly in terms of language that you've used in the past? No. The thing that I've done wrong has been highlighted to me,
and it's shown me now that there's certain things that you can't say and do, well, so be it. If that's the rules now, and if that's what we're supposed to do, then let people know.
Is there anything you want to say this morning, John, to anyone out there who still thinks John Yems, no, he's a wrong'un?
Well, people.
Do you want to apologise, John, for any offence that you clearly have caused?
People are out there. They're going to say what they're going to say. People are out there and going to think what they're going to think. I'm only saying to you, have a look. I wasn't found to be racist. I never used racist language with intent. If anybody needs an apology, I think I do. The amount the abuse and everything that I've been getting, when people haven't even had the courtesy to ask me, I don't think nobody's even looked at the case with any open-mindedness. And I think if you go in there's a few apologies that should be coming my way.
Yeah, that's John Yems, the former Crawley Town manager. It'd be funny if it wasn't so serious. A long line of people, I'm sure, ready to apologise to John Yems. One player who was of Asian and Irish descent ended up basically feigning illness to get out of the club so that he wouldn't have to go in and face the banter. As it's described in the report, he used to get slagged off every day about eating curry by John Yems. So Curtis Fleming's coming up on that. To see all this written down, Richie, and it is a long, extensive report, and for the FA to somehow come out and say that he is not a conscious racist, and if they had said if he was a conscious racist, it would have been in all likelihood a lifetime ban. Instead, it's just a 18-month suspension. It's hard to see how he would work in football again, though, with all of this being out there. It feels time and time again when we talk about racism, the authorities who are letting people down. That when it comes to actually punishing the racists, they won't go and do it.
The interesting thing in the light of this is the FA were clearly unhappy with the language that was used in that report by the independent authority here, and are deciding to pursue legal action, it would seem, after that for the use. And it all stems from that term, conscious racist. I'm flabbergasted listening to that interview, to be honest with you. It's astounding that somebody could lack that level of self-awareness. But he seemed to, talking to Jim White there, seemed to think that there should be a list of things that he can't say anymore, which is perverse. I think not necessarily the length of the report, going through the report, and I've read decent chunks of it there over the last few days. It's not necessarily the language he used, it's the continued nature of it. And it was over and over again, and the same types of things being said to players of different minorities, and it's just... it can't stand. And for anybody to try and defend it, least of all himself, is perverse, to be quite honest. And I hope he hasn't got a future in the game. If he does, he needs to learn some lessons, fairly sharpish. But if anything, football has proved over the last while, is that it will let worse people than John Yems pursue their career in it, even after bad things have come to light. So, yeah, God knows what the future holds for him. Hopefully it's not at a high standing, because there's a lot of young players can do without having a coach like him.
It was in that independent report decided essentially, Arthur, that while he may have said racist things, that doesn't necessarily make him a racist. And there's a lot of talk of he's old school, like within the report, that there's a sort of old school, would accept himself, he has an industrial use of language, and he's a little bit old school. And as you heard there from the interview, sure, how was he to know?
Yeah, there's something peculiarly stupid about that, like in terms of what, like conscious racism. So I mean, what the idea being that it's subconscious racism, unconscious racism, like it's unbelievable that, like, it's so thick, it's so stupid that they'd come to a conclusion that, like, we'll go with this and we'll say this, and that'll veer the lines. It's fine, he's part of a different age, it doesn't matter, because as you're saying, it's the continuation of as Richie was saying, the continuation of all this abuse, and also the variety of it. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't someone who's not thinking. This is. It's not. There's no sense you're saying it's clever, but he's not just saying There's a.
And it went past banter. Is the other thing that Curtis Fleming. It's all up online now, and you can listen back to it. And he's brilliant. He's so considered in the way that he talks about this. Yeah. That if you have a player refusing to come to training, feigning illness, like, firstly, that's bullying, and then when it's said in the tone and the racial overtones and undertones that it's used with, then it is racism. You can't say that it is somehow an unconscious thing.
And I'm wondering about that, exactly what you're saying with regards, I suppose, the figures who have authority to punish such behaviour but ultimately choose not to. Do we know why that is? Is that like, is it just, I suppose, is it a fear that ultimately you'll bring litigation back on yourself, that it's so hard probably like these things to prove, or to kind of, you know, because I presume, like, I know the over and back in the reports about the report is about that the kind of things that were reached between the panel and his legal representative. So obviously it's kind of, I suspect, is that what it comes down to, the fact that you're fearful that you'll get sued back or something to that degree? That
was as far as they could legally go.
Like, it's just pathetic. Like, and hopefully, like, what I'm struck by,
it ends up with the manager being able to go on national radio in the UK saying, I'm the one who deserves an apology here.
It's like that moment. Do you ever see Frost Nixon? You know that moment where they have it laid on or whatever, and Nixon says that thing about, to paraphrase it, like, if the president does it, it's not a crime. And they're all like, oh my God, we got him. And it's like, it must have been like that in those offices today when they think, like, I deserve the apology. I was like, are you crazy? It's unbelievable. I don't know how anybody couldn't, how he allowed himself or was allowed to go on there anyway. It's just kind of, it's beyond bizarre what good he thought would come of it.
The complete lack of self-awareness. 53106 is the text number. So Curtis Fleming is coming up after 9 o'clock on the football show. We'll have Adam Pope as well, talking about Leeds and some rumours, though they were quickly beaten down by Jesse Marsh, that there was a revolt from within the dressing room. So we'll talk about that, and we'll also touch on Leeds with John Giles, who's coming up at 7:30. Rory O'Connor is going to be with us after 8. So the Ireland squad for the Six Nations has been announced, and no doubt about the big story, no Joey Carbery.
Yeah, I think most of the preview pieces in the last 24 hours were suggesting there were going to be 4 out halves named by Andy Farrell today. Not so, just 3 of them. And Joey Carbery, the most notable absentee from that Ireland squad named for the Six Nations. The trio of out halves included by Farrell are Jonathan Sexton and his support cast of Jack Crowley and Ross Byrne. There's the first call-up for Leinster's 21-year-old centre, Jamie Osborne. Gavin Coombs earns a recall in place of the injured Max Deegan. Robbie Henshaw and Robert Balakoon miss out through injury. Also included there today, Joe McCarthy, who comes in place of Ulster's Kieran Treadwell.
I don't think anyone saw this coming. The conversation. What have we wasted all this time having this conversation for the last 3 years about whether Joey Carbery can step in for Johnny Sexton, and Joey Carbery may not even be there now when it gets to the World Cup. He's been in every squad when he's been fit since back in 2016. So this did come out of the blue, and yes, there's been questions about form and, you know, taking off after an hour at the weekend for Munster. But the fact that I think Jack Crowley in particular has played such a small amount of rugby at out half. Ross Byrne, it feels, is the form man for a lot of people. Maybe he did enough with that last kick in the last game against Australia that they feel, you know what, we've seen enough. He's continued that. He has a relationship with Jamison Gibson Park as well. They spend a lot of time together. Maybe it's a kick up the backside for Joey Carbery.
Yeah,
like, that's been the frustration with Carbery. Carbery has never had someone come on and go, well, actually, Carbery's pushing Sexton.
Yeah.
But does he need a kick in the backside at this stage? That's like, because I thought he was playing okay. You know, I don't think anybody could look at him his last few games and say he was playing poorly and didn't deserve a call up. I mean, I think a lot of where they want to cut across here, a lot of what the 4 out half talk was there was taken as such fait accompli that Carbery would be included. That when talk of Ross Byrne was floated, it was just like, oh, he must be bringing 4. And he's not. Now, clearly he wants somebody, and you look at the centre options in there and you look at the lack of Robbie Henshaw, you want someone in there who can cover centre, and that's understandable. And perhaps Joey Carbery isn't that player. But I don't know if a kick up the backside is what's intended here. I think it's just basically picking 3 out halves based firstly on form and secondly on Crowley's flexibility.
We can't write him off because, well, firstly, injuries can happen at any stage. But if he doesn't get back in through the Six Nations, there's only the few warm-up games before the World Cup. And the disappointment of from where Joey Carbery was 5-6 years ago, we felt we'd be past Johnny Sexton now. We'd be in the Carbery era. Like, it is a massive sense of just being quite underwhelmed by it.
Johnny Sexton's seen off his predecessor and his proposed successor. Like. It's incredible. Like I don't know enough about these things, the ins and outs of it, but like, what's the likelihood then of? I presume during the Six Nations, people can be drafted.
I think there'll be changes every week.
Yeah.
But you'd expect these, unless there's any injuries, these 3 will be the 3 for the first 2 games.
It's quite tough. It must be quite embarrassing if it all is as it is. Because as you're saying, like, no more than everyone. God Almighty, like, listen to between OTB AM and Off the Ball, that discussion's been had a fair amount with that kind of when will he assume the position, and then just to be in the very last kind of hurdle, like as you were saying, there's only about 6-7 games left before the World Cup starts, just to be cast aside, like that's pretty brutal.
I'm still going with the idea that we just play Sexton in every possible game and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Screw his succession plan between now and the World Cup. Every game he's available for, just play him, and then pray to God that Ross Byrne or Jack Crowley can step up when it comes to it if he ever gets injured.
Yeah, that's
Roll
the dice.
That thing about swaddling him in cotton wool, and the thing of like, if we rest him against say Wales, then he might be available a week down the line. He might get injured in the next game anyway. You might as well, if he's available, play him. He's going after the World Cup anyway. Get to the World Cup and know we're going after that. You got yourself another 4-year cycle from which to build. So go from there.
Listen, could he stay awake till 4:05 a.m. in the morning playing rugby, Johnny Sexton, at his age? I'm not sure. Andy Murray. At first I thought this was a repeat when at 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock. So they'd nearly be finishing up at Wimbledon at 5 p.m. this evening. But they were still playing at the Australian Open at 4 a.m.
Yeah, God bless the covers and the lights and all that kind of stuff at the Margaret Court Arena. It was 4:05 in the morning in Melbourne when Andy Murray finally put his Australian Open second round match to bed. He came from 2 sets to love down to beat Thanasi Kokkinakis in 5 sets, having played the longest match of his career at 5 hours and 45 minutes. Murray says it took incredible determination to get over the line.
But I think now I'm outright the most matches coming back from 2 sets to love down, so I have done it before. I have experience of it, and I just rely on that experience and that drive and that fight and my love of the game and competing and my respect for this event and the competition, and that's why I kept going.
5 hours and 45 minutes, so the longest match of his career. That means, Richie, they still started after 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah, they did.
What's the thinking?
It's not the only late night finish. This is the latest, I think, by far they've had this week. There were 2 a.m. finishes and half 1 finishes so far. It's not good, to be honest. Like, whatever about there was a magnificent show put on by the two of them. They both leaned into the game. Murray was fantastic in trying to win it back from 2 sets to love down and putting up an incredible fight. The stragglers that were left inside the Margaret Court Arena made for a wonderful atmosphere. But it's not right. It's not right to be playing elite sport at 4:05 in the morning when you started at 10 p.m. when you've probably been readying yourself, and they were the last match due on court on Margaret Court, when you've been readying yourself since the middle of the day. It doesn't make for it's not good conditions for anybody involved, for the players, for the umpire, for the line judges who are trying to judge calls at 3-4 in the morning, and then the crowd
moving at hundreds of miles an hour. What the hell just happened?
Out, I think. I don't know. I was scratching my eye, but it's and the people who are working in and around the centre there, Melbourne, like, it's just not good. Like, and it has to stop. And I know they've got a schedule, and I know they've got to get things done, but there would have been no harm in, seeing where this was going at 10 p.m. and calling it a night, because
you have a
before they even
took
took to the court,
and that's it, and we're done. The end.
It should be.
Andy Murray at one stage, he'd used up all his toilet breaks, but wanted to go again, and they wouldn't let him. He's like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I can't go to the Jacks. Like, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Do we know when he's playing again, Richie?
He'll be back. What day is today? He'll be back again on Saturday for his third round match. Roberto Bautista gut.
It's already Friday there.
It's perfect for us. Just nice Thursday afternoon viewing. Djokovic.
He says he's worried by his lingering hamstring injury. He needed to take painkillers during the course of his 4-set win today over Enzo Quacco. Next up for the 9-time champion is Grigor Dimitrov, once that hamstring injury calms down, of course.
Well, I am worried. I mean, I cannot say that I'm not, and I have reason to be worried, but at the same time, I have to accept the circumstances and try to adjust myself with my team, and my physio and medical team has been doing everything possible so that I could be able to play every match. So there's not much more to talk about. There's 2 choices: or leave it or keep going. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to try to play and compete. with, of course, a great player, Dimitrov, in a couple of days' time. I know that matches are only going to get tougher for me from here. 2 years ago, I had kind of similar circumstances here in Australia with a different muscle where I had a tear, and I had to deal with that. But somehow I pushed it through and won the tournament. But it's different now, obviously. I don't know how my body is going to react. I hope for the best. I hope for the positive outcome, and I'll take it day by day, match by match, and see how it goes.
Bad day for the second seeds?
Yeah, Casper Ruud was beaten in 4 sets this morning by the American Jensen Brooksby. 8 seed Taylor Fritz lost in 5 to Alexei Popyrin, and the 12 seed Alexander Zverev lost in 4 to the world number 107 Michael Moe, whose mother hails from Monaghan. We won't hear the end of it from Shane Hannon. And not a good day for the number 2 seeds, as you say, with Ons Jabeur losing her second round match in 3 sets to Marketa Vondrousova. 9th seed Veronika Kudermetova also lost in 3 to the American qualifier and brilliantly named Katie Volynets. But 4th seed Caroline Garcia, 5th seed Arina Sabalenka, and 12th seed Belinda Bencic all progressed today to round 3.
So I mentioned at the top of the show, there is live Premier League tonight. It's a big one. The 2 teams beaten in the derby at the weekend, meeting at the Etihad.
Yeah, Manchester City looking to trim Arsenal's lead at the top to 5 points. Pep Guardiola's side entertaining Tottenham. Kick-off at 8 o'clock. Ederson is in goal for City. They've then got Rico Lewis, John Stones, Manuel Akanji and Nathan Ake across their back 4. It's a midfield trio of Rodri, Ilkay Gundogan, who captains the side, and Jack Grealish. And Riyad Mahrez and Julian Alvarez are in support of Erling Haaland. For Spurs, Hugo Lloris is in goal. Emerson Royale, Christian Romero, Eric Dyer and Ben Davies are their back 3. Christian Perisic is on the left, or is in midfield, alongside Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Rodrigo Bentancur. And Dejan Kulusevski and Heung-min Son support Harry Kane.
Yeah, this game sort of just crept up after all the excitement of the weekend, but with Arsenal 8 points clear and City just sort of stumbling along even before the World Cup, any more drop points and Arsenal suddenly get to a position where, is it unassailable? Is it what's unassailable? What's unassailable these days? 12?
Something that doesn't involve Arsenal.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that. So he's going with Haaland and Alvarez up front tonight.
Yeah, it was funny. I don't think I've been on. I was at the match on Sunday.
Saturday even.
Saturday. Yeah, sorry.
You were at the Manchester derby, yeah?
Yeah, and it's funny how ineffective. Now I thought Grealish was good when he came on, but it was funny how ineffective Phil Foden was, just on that left hand side where you're kind of sitting right behind him. It's not too surprising not to see it was like night and day from what you see from him normally. Certainly when you're watching from afar, how everything was. But be that Aaron Wan-Bissaka or something more. I think it's probably something more widespread than that because he's just not been playing great. But it's I don't know.
They're not getting the balls to those front 3 as quickly and getting them into the position. Like the thing about watching City generally is it's repetitive. It's every game looks sort of similar because they're going through similar motions and they all move into the same place at exactly the right time. Whereas watching them over the last few weeks, none of that is happening.
Well, it's astounding how. And to be fair, they're risky passes in theory, certainly as opposed to playing it square, playing it off to the way, like your fullback coming up. But it's incredible how often they don't bother even trying to hit Haaland with those runs because he never stops. He's always going, he's always moving, and they just don't try it at all, which is it's very, very odd because that didn't seem to be the way at the start of the season, really. I mean,
this is an interesting team tonight because if you look at the bench, actually, they have what you could argue is their first choice back 4: Kyle Walker, João Cancelo, Ruben Dias, Aymeric Laporte, all on the bench. Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, who you would say are the 3 best attacking midfielders, all on the bench as well. It could well be, and you assume Guardiola just trying to shake it up a little bit and find something that will click and get them back into gear again. But from a position where usually you look at Manchester City and Tottenham and go, this could be an absolute cracker. At the moment, it's sort of who breaks first.
Yeah, I still think City will beat them. They could beat them well enough. It's that kind of thing. Look, I don't know, because we're all kind of like preconditioned. Richie's kind of saying there with you half expect Arsenal to slip, you still half expect at the same time it to slip back in for City.
City could win 10 games in a row. They've done it so many times. I feel I'm getting less conditioned to Arsenal slipping up.
Yeah.
Though a large part of me, just for the drama of it, wants, you always want the blow up. I always say this with the golf. You could be the nicest, the world's nicest man, but if you were to give me a choice between any golfer winning a tournament by 6 shots, or that person blowing up in the last hole. Give me them blowing up in the last hole, just for my entertainment, just so I'm sitting at home enjoying it. Doesn't matter about the pain they're going to go through for years to come. I kind of feel like that with the football as well.
So you like seeing the swoop?
I like seeing the devastation, the bottling it. That's what I live for.
Suddenly feeling less comfortable about you being my line manager.
Well, I need to set you up for the fall first, Richard. You know?
That's it.
Here, leave us with one story then, because Mick is back.
They're getting the gang back together.
Are we getting a Mick McCarthy impression here, Richie?
Listen, I'm back in the game. Mick McCarthy has indeed returned to management. The former Republic of Ireland boss has been appointed by Championship strugglers Blackpool until the end of the season. Blackpool sits second from bottom in the Championship, and they sacked Michael Appleton this week after last week's 2-0 defeat away to Watford. McCarthy will be assisted, as ever, by TC Terry Connor.
I wish Blackpool, as a launch video, just had TC sitting by the phone, sort of going through his day, reading Mick's book, looking longingly at Mick, and that's a great idea for them. And then eventually he's back.
Oh, good
TC.
God. It's great. It'll be great. And like, geez, it was funny talking to our Mick McCarthy earlier. He's just kind of talking about the fact that this is too complicated when you're going back. Manager Mick is going to be the fact that he just keeps coming back. There's no reason for him realistically to be doing this, just out of the thrill of it.
Well, people don't want to be just sitting around. Mick McCarthy's not a man who wants to be sitting around doing nothing all day.
No, but I'm sure there are other ways he could fill his time.
This is, Mick crouched up against the side of the dugout. That's where he's at his happiest. That's where we're all at our happiest for Mick. It's good to have him back. Richie, thank you.
Nice and lads.
Arthur, thank you.
Cheers, Nathan.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
So not one person has answered our call this week. The prize money has been building and building, and yet again we've another enormous sum of money up for grabs. So to get involved, here's the number you need to know: €92,736.88. Text play to 57557. That's 57557. Get your entry in by 3 tomorrow. Then across the Go Loud network stations, Barry Dunn makes that call.